Well, thanks everyone for joining today. I'm Adriana Cowdin. So we're going to talk a little bit about your LinkedIn profile today and some strategies. There's a couple of interactive sessions. So today we're going to go through just a quick welcome and introduction for those who don't know me yet. We're going to talk about optimizing your profile, building and expanding your network a little bit, and then we'll go through some interactive exercises and of course have time for questions. So if you don't know me or we haven't worked together, you haven't heard me present, I'm Adriana Cowdin. I am an executive coach and the founder of Be Bold Executive Coaching. I came out of private equity for a while. I was a CMO at a KKR-owned portco. I was also a CEO and a CDMO and have been doing coaching for over 20 years, specifically around career and personal branding. I did my coaching at Harvard Business School through their coaching curriculum back in the 90s before it was a thing. And I will give you links to the website to find out anything else you want. So I'd rather dig in on your stuff. So today, again, we're going to talk about optimizing your PE leadership LinkedIn profile and what that looks like specifically in career transition. So first and foremost, I regularly interview recruiters to get information from them on what are you looking for in a new PE candidate executive and what can they do differently or better. One of the first things I heard was absolutely use those keywords. And this is because they use a service called LinkedIn Lite. And that is typically a search that they will use their keyword first, then a location range or the zip code afterwards. And that zip code is usually, again, for hybrid or in-office roles, which there are more and more of now. They rarely search for titles. And so I think this is really important to say because even if you have been a CFO in PE for a very long time, someone may not be calling it CFO, right? They might be using a different term for whatever reason. And so titles are not necessarily the best keywords to use. Yes, you want them in your experience where that actually was your title. That's how it'll get picked up as opposed to in your headline or a keyword. And what you want to look at doing is looking at the skill sets that are the most valuable. So there's some CFOs that are all about EBITDA, most PE ones. There are some who are more accountant oriented. There are some who are more process oriented. So look for those keywords that align closely with the way that you manage finances for your PE client portcos that you work with. And then do some searches on LinkedIn to see what keywords you're finding. Here's the way you do that. When you go to add your skills, we're going to talk about skills. If you were to type in revenue, you'll see a skill that says revenue ampersand profit growth. That's a skill that's already in LinkedIn's database. Now, you could stop at revenue and add that as your keyword or skill. But what's going to happen is you're not going to come up in the searches because people are searching based on the keywords that are in there. So find the ones that match most closely to you. Some of the ones I think are really valuable in your scenarios, of course, value creation, the revenue and profit growth. And then again, it seems kind of almost, junior to say, but private equity. Make sure you put PE and private equity in there. And they're two different skills in LinkedIn. So when you do keywords, spell out private equity as opposed to just PE. And that's where we get to the skills section. So 40% of companies globally will rely on the skills search for candidates. Keywords are what are in your content. So think of them as a couple core competencies, maybe 5 or 7 listed in your about section. Skills are actually the skills that are attached to each job. And at the bottom of your profile, there is a summary of those skills. You can also choose the 5 most important skills. It's called top skills. It's a small section that goes under your about section. And I really encourage you to do that. Some of the things you want to consider for that, if they make sense, stakeholder management, change management, cash flow management and optimization. That whole phrase is actually a LinkedIn keyword. Exit strategy expertise. M&A and due diligence, those two are grouped together. There is also M&A and then due diligence. But if you have both, go after the skill set that has both. Again, use the skills that naturally populate when you start typing into LinkedIn skills area. And my little trick for this is the ones you identify as your 5 most relevant skills, connect those to every job you can where it legitimately makes sense. So let's say I had M&A and due diligence, change management, and exit strategy expertise in financial operations as 4 of my 5. Any job where I have done those 4 skills, I want to put them in and attach them. It's at the experience. When you include your job, you add the skill. That's because you have increased your rate of showing up in those searches because you have repeatedly used that skill. Moving on, I find this funny to say, but some people don't have profile photos. It is really important to have a profile photo. So this is talking about a study done. It was done by LinkedIn on 800 profile photos, just conveying the value of a smile. You're found to be more likable, competent, and influential if you smile. And if you have a photo, you receive 14 times more view than those without. Joyce is going to share a resources document for you after today's presentation. In that resources document, I include tips on what to do for your photo, including the size of the photo for LinkedIn, backgrounds, all of that. Needless to say, you can absolutely use an iPhone and a little camera stand to take your own photo. Just make sure to smile and have it look like you. These are the tips, but of course you'll get them in that resource guide. And I include these photos here so that you can see they're all a little bit different, right? Some are a little more casual, some are more formal, some are face forward, little head nod. As long as it looks like you and you're smiling and it's professional, it works great. None of these are AI generated, by the way. Some of those AI generators are really, really helpful. So feel free to explore some of those too. Next, your experience section. Again, working with recruiters, what they have found is that a lot of people are not building out the details in their experience areas. And so make sure, first of all, that if it's not a company most people know, which many of the PE portcos are not, that you include one sentence, literally one sentence about what the company you worked for does. That brings context to the industry experience. And then a couple sentences about your role. That's the context to your position itself. And then 3 or 4 bullet points that highlight what you contributed. That additional information about the scope of your role, managed P&L in this amount or revenue in this amount, team size of X, all of that, as well as the firm's focus, scale, and success, helps you be qualified to land those interviews, which is what we want to do. I gave an example here of how you might write an experience. It's going to be different for each person, and you want it to be different in each one of your experiences in this section. You don't want them all to start the same way, right? So just make sure you're building that out intelligently and creatively, and then omit outdated experience that is considered not relevant to your current or desired career. And what that means is anything really over 20 years. It's kind of crazy to think that that's only 2005. But the caveat to this is the recruiters and hiring managers tend to consider this not relevant, right? So as we all know, what we did in the beginning of our careers helped shape us and grow our skills. So is it relevant? Yes, it's relevant, but it's considered not the most relevant when you're looking for a C-suite role, right? I don't need to know your first position as a finance analyst, for example. Now, I do like to say, if you have foundational experience at Fortune 500s, a Big Four accounting firm, something like that, a brand name in your industry, put that in your about section and talk about it in the sense of, built my foundational expertise or professional experience years at ABC, at Abbott Labs, Takeda Pharmaceuticals, and Johnson & Johnson, for example, Kenvue. So the reason is because that's how you integrate those really important company names and still get them without showing all of that experience so far back. It's kind of the trick around that, if you will. Next, when we talk about recommendations, this is interesting. So according to the recruiters, what happens with recommendations is when they have a candidate that's like right on that fence, you're not the obvious contender or you're not exactly the right fit, they go down to your recommendations and they actually read those recommendations. You know, are you adaptable? What is your leadership like? Do you go above and beyond? Do you cultivate and nurture your teams? That's the point of those recommendations. You want them to shed light on professional skills and your personal attributes. So if you're someone who is able to cultivate teams that become very loyal and therefore you have low turnover and high retention, have someone write a recommendation about that. It's good if you get recommendations from different areas. So clients, board members, partners or vendors, maybe the audit firm, colleagues, team members, peers, that whole group is really smart because it shows that diversity in your approach and that a different type of people are all recommending you. When it comes to asking for the recommendation, be really clear on what you want them to recommend you for specifically. So if you are asking for a recommendation from the audit partner, say, I'd like you to write me a recommendation related to my collaborative spirit in moving the company forward and establishing financial rigor and processes, as an example. Oftentimes, if you draft or write the recommendation for them, it will increase your success almost by twofold in actually securing the recommendation. And so a little trick to this is just go into ChatGPT, say, can you draft me a clear, concise, and compelling recommendation from my former board member. I was the CFO at this company. Can you focus on these 3 attributes? Let it draft something, of course, humanize it. And then when you request the recommendation from the individual you're sending it to via LinkedIn, you can say, I've gone ahead and drafted something for you to make it easier on you. Feel free to use it or start fresh. Think about when you receive these. If someone's already written it, it's a lot easier to just kind of copy and paste what they wrote, change a few things, and post it. And then my tip here is always, whatever you do, if you're currently in a role, make sure you don't ask for recommendations from your current employer or colleagues or partners or vendors, because that obviously tips them off that you're likely searching. Let's dive into your top 10 tips for building and expanding your PE network. They are nice and organized here, and they're also on the resources guide. But again, always include your headshot. You want to make your headline stand out. So it should talk about not just what you do as a finance executive, but maybe some of your capacity. So PE, mid-sized firms, $500 to $50 million. If it's always been B2C or B2B, that would be good. Your industry, life sciences, telecom, whatever the case may be. And then something about you, operational expert or cultivates performance-driven financial teams, things like that. You want to write a standout summary. This is really important because this is next to the headline. This is the first thing people are going to read. And if you consider the fact that your resume has about 7.5 seconds of review time, your LinkedIn profile has even less. If you capture them in the headline, you've got to keep them captured in the summary to get them to look at your experience. Make your, you know what? It looks like these are duplicated, so I apologize for that. We're going to jump to 7, which is to make it visual. So if you don't have a LinkedIn banner, you definitely want to put a LinkedIn banner on there. There's plenty of ways to find a template. Canva, C-A-N-V-A. Claire, can you pop a link to Canva in the chat? Canva has a LinkedIn template library of thousands that you can use to design one. And it is super easy, like change this color, drag and drop. Next, customize your URL if you haven't already. Your public profile URL, you can change it to anything you want. You can change it to private equity CFO if you want, as long as no one else has it. I recommend your first and last name, but feel free to change it, whatever you feel is the most important. Snag those recommendations and make sure to stay active, posting 3 to 5 times per week. When it comes to verification and credibility, if you are verified, you will get 60% more profile views in terms of search visibility and in those recommendations. The reason is because this basically says this person is not a bot, or they're not, they're actually real. And I always want to call out, they're not verifying your experience or your education. It is literally a verification using your driver's license or your Clear account. For those who are familiar with Clear, I think it's an eye scanning system for traveling. But then you get that check mark that you see next to my name here. Verified profiles really do matter. You get 50% more comments and reactions on your posts, and you get 30% more messages. That's what starts increasing those profile views. Basically just says, again, this is a real person, someone worth engaging. So the first thing I want to do in this exercise is I want you to create a headline that positions you as the PE finance industry leader that you are and communicates your unique value. I've included 3 instructions. So reflect back on what is your key expertise or value proposition, realizing that on this call alone, there are 20 some other people that are looking for similar jobs. How are you going to stand out? What leadership roles or achievements define you? And then who is your target audience within PE, and what is important for you to know, for them to know about you at first glance? So go ahead and spend some time doing that. I think I want to have you guys do that for 5 or 7 minutes, and then we will come back together and we'll see if some people want to share. Okay, that's about 5 minutes. Is there anyone who would like to share? Looks like Jay put it in the chat. Love it. Chief Financial Officer, Vice President of FP&A, results driven, M&A, trusted advisor to leadership, building high performance teams, operationally focused. Love it. I think results driven, I'm just going to give you some real-time feedback. I hope that's okay, Jay. Results driven doesn't tell me anything really, because a lot of people use results driven. So if I were going to do that, maybe I would mention a specific result or specific growth opportunity, whether it was revenue, et cetera. I like operationally focused and high performance teams. I would be careful to put CFO and then VP of FP&A. Again, that title thing, the concern will be, are you a C-suite or are you VP? We all know it can be the same job at 2 different companies because titles vary. That's the only reason I would be a little hesitant on that. Okay, senior executive with strengths in finance and technology at SMBs, driving profitable growth and operational excellence. Love that. Looks great. I think the only thing I would say is I might change it to actual word senior and put finance and technology executive. So senior finance and technology executive. Steve, finance and operations leader, trusted executive business partner, GTM leadership, financial. I love this. Love it. These are great. These are wonderful. Feel free to keep putting them in there. When we have another breakout in just a moment, what I'll do is pop back in there and provide feedback if anyone wants it. So when it comes to establishing thought leadership, there are 2 great tricks. The first is that you regularly want to post, so 3 to 5 times per week. Make sure you go in and look at, I would say, post for the 3 to 5 times per week for 1 month. And then look at which posts are getting the most response, likes, comments, shares, and what days and times. LinkedIn has organic analytics built in, super easy to use, and then adjust your posts. For anyone who doesn't know, you can easily schedule posts on LinkedIn. When you go to add a post, before you click the word post, like the blue button that says post, there's a little black and white clock icon. You click that, you can pick a day and time and schedule them out. So my trick is always spend 30 minutes every Sunday, Monday, or whatever day works for you. Get these organized, schedule them out for their week, and you're good to go. When it comes to the type of content to share, original articles that you write and publish on LinkedIn about PE activity, industry trends, M&A activity. That's been a lot of conversation because it's been very low in the last year or so. Leadership strategies, different innovative ideas. The other thing is curated content, right? Share relevant news. If there's an article about, obviously there's a new administration in the White House, how the new administration is, affecting finances or the M&A activity or things like that. That's a great article to share. Avoid any political opinions, but always a great article to share about how economics are changing. Any research or thought pieces. And when you go to share them, you want to repost with comments. Just include some light comments, maybe 2 or 3 sentences. That actually tricks the system. I share in the resources guide, you're going to get the 411 rule. And that is to share 4 pieces of other people's content. That could be Bold, it could be Fang, it could be the Financial Times, Forbes, whoever you want. 4 pieces of someone else's comment for every 1 piece of your own authentic content. And that gets you the 1 perfect profile, 411. And then if you can do short form videos, people love them, makes your content more engaging. Even if you're someone who's not natural on camera or doesn't feel comfortable, try to get into this. I think it's the TikTok revolution hitting LinkedIn. So try and do some short form videos, 30 or 45 seconds. When you're engaging with your network, make sure that you are adding value to the discussion. So if you're going to comment on something, whatever you do, don't have those 3 or 5 posts per week just be congrats on the new job. It's like the first thing people see when they come to your profile is you're not actually authentically engaging. You're just every so often using a pre-filled congratulations and sending it out. So add value to the discussion. Comment on the post with something that's thoughtful or insightful. Again, doesn't need to be an essay, just a couple of sentences. Or ask questions. Initiate conversations within the comments or by resharing that post with your comments that provoke thought and conversation. And then, of course, when you do find an achievement, whether it's someone landing a job, whether it's someone joining Fang or whatever the case may be, celebrate the successes and milestones of your individual connections. A great way to do that is not just publicly, but also send them a personalized message. People really appreciate that. So we're going to dive into a group exercise right now. Claire, if you can get ready, I will leave this on the screen. What we're going to do is identify content themes to establish yourself as a thought leader. So I want you to identify 3 industry challenges or trends that you can speak to with authority, 1 unique insight or lesson you can share from your leadership journey, and then draft 1 post that inspires or educates the audience. So again, you're going to discuss those 3 pillars, brainstorm all of that, and then each person in your breakout is going to share 1 actionable LinkedIn post idea based on those themes. So you should come out of it with, let's say there's 3 people in your breakout, you should have 3 LinkedIn post ideas. You don't have to have the post written, but you can have 3 ideas, 1 from each of you. And let's do, this one takes a while. Let's do 7 minutes for this one, Claire.
All right, everybody should be popping back.
There we go. Okay, great. Okay, so we're going to spend the next 2 minutes doing, or 2 or 3 minutes doing shares, and then we're going to jump into another exercise. So it's like a test of how well you paid attention today. You start working and using your skills right away. Okay, who wants to share the LinkedIn post idea that you came up with? I mean, not everyone at once.
I can talk about it if you want me to.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Yeah. So basically, I focused on challenges with the risk management frameworks within the regulated industry. That is one of the things I've recently working on. So as regulations and standards continue to evolve, they are changing. They form a constant battle for the organizations to go about it. The second challenge which is coming is basically the integration of multiple technologies and the multiple platforms which are available out there. Although the new technologies are coming. I'm sorry.
It sounds like someone's not on mute. Someone else is not on mute. We're
Okay.
just their
All
chat.
right.
Sorry about that.
So integration of multiple platforms or technologies, even with the AI, we still have to go a long way before we can start seeing the better results. Once AI get a little mature, then the third thing is the data mutation and the privacy issues, which is going to come along down the road. How to get the real-time data and everything, and in order to get that real-time data, especially using the AI models, which is a big concern, because in order to get your every organization cannot make their own models, and it is let me rephrase it. It is challenging for organizations to create their own learning models. So the models are out there, but they need to access your data in order to provide you the feedback. Now, if my data is kind of like sensitive, how am I going to use those technologies within that? And at the end of the day, how am I going to create a risk framework which is going to encompass everything to highlight as to the board or to the executives that, hey, these are the issues which is coming along and so on and so forth. So these are the points that we just talked about, and then it's all in my mind. I haven't put anything on the piece of paper yet. So
that's okay. The whole point was just to have the idea come up based on the themes, and it's very clear your themes were technology and risk management, risk strategy. So I think that's fantastic. Thank you so much. Okay, let's go to the next group exercise. This is going to be groups of 2, so just partners. And the intention is to provide some constructive feedback. So always the same ground rules, be respectful, but also be honest, make sure it is actually constructive and that you're giving feedback that's valuable. So Claire is going to put you in groups of 2. You want to just choose one of the 2 of you, give feedback, 5 minutes to one person, 5 minutes to the other person. Obviously, you're going to take a minute or 2 to read each person's profile, your other person's. You want to give 2 to 3 constructive and actionable suggestions to help them optimize their profile. So we're going to have 10 minutes for this. And again, 2 or 3 actionable suggestions that are constructive and respectful, but honest, to help them optimize their profile. Okay, great. We only have 2 minutes left. So just a reminder of what we covered today. We went through optimizing your profile, the top 10 tips, which when you get the resources guide, we'll have all of them in there, establishing your thought leadership. And then of course we have 2 minutes for questions. Also, I really encourage feedback. We love to get feedback on what worked, what didn't work, what you liked. So there is a link in the chat, which you can also see on the screen right now. It will prompt you for a code that is also in the chat and on the screen.